At Montreal's Allen Memorial Institute, the nightmare was all too real. And incredibly, what happened there was secretly supported by the U.S. Central Intelligence Agency and the Canadian government.
The U.S. Central Intelligence Agency and the Canadian government.
One of my oldest friends in life has been struggling to figure out exactly what the heck's been happening to him and his family over the past 2 years. He trusts the government and the news he's watching every day wholeheartedly, even though most of the government restrictions and regulations that have affected him and his family just don't seem right or make any sense at all. I've tried explaining some of the villainous behavior that's been done by governments across the world over the past 2 years, and specifically here in Canada, but he couldn't get his head around it, and he stopped me mid-sentence by saying, "The Canadian government isn't involved in any mind control nonsense or any evil plan to try and strip us of our rights. Governments don't do those type of things." Well, hate to break the bad news to many of you, but the Canadian government has and still does engage in mind control tactics and the brainwashing of the people of Canada. Dating back to the early 1950s, right into the 70s, the Canadian government, in association with the CIA, has been involved in the brainwashing of Canadians, as well as various other mind control tactics. If you don't want to believe me because you think I'm some crazed conspiracy theorist, that's okay. Perhaps you'll have an easier time believing it if it was told to you by someone you trust from the CBC.
From 1950 until the mid-60s, Montreal's respected psychiatric facility, the Allen Memorial Institute, was the site of secret brainwashing experiments, funded by the CIA under the codename MKUltra, with money from the Canadian government as well. The program would quietly be shut down in 1965. But the truth about what happened there would be protected for another decade and a half longer. Then, in 1980, we were among the first to tell Canadians about it.
The Fifth Estate.
I'm Adrienne Clarkson. Tonight we report on a secret CIA research project carried out in Montreal in which mental patients felt they were used as the CIA's guinea pigs.
They kept you asleep for 23 days. And while I was asleep, they were shocking the heck out of me with electric shocks.
There's an amazing documentary that was released in 2018 called The Minds of Men, which was written and produced by Aaron and Melissa Dykes. Their documentary goes into great detail about the brainwashing and mind control tactics used by the United States and Canadian governments.
Virtually no aspect of potential control of human beings went untested.
The work was done by the late Dr. Ewan Cameron. It involved extensive use of potentially dangerous drugs, excessive electric shock treatment, and endless tape-recorded messages to sleeping patients.
Dr. Cameron wanted to erase, rewrite, and program the mind and the person with all new thoughts and behaviors. And he used CIA and Rockefeller Foundation funding to do it.
Cameron wrote, this was the way to make direct, controlled changes in personality. Is that what you were interested in?
And it would say over and over again the actual words that the individual had said. And Dr. Cameron's idea, apparently, was that if somebody listened to this long enough, that it would represent some kind of a breakdown, and a breakdown in a psychotherapeutic sense.
Some heard the same message 250,000 times. Some heard the same message 250,000 times.
Some heard the same message 250,000 times.
Messages being repeated 250,000 times over and over in order to brainwash an individual. Does that sound like anything you've heard in your TV, radio, or phone over the past 2 years?
New cases of COVID-19. Of COVID-19 in Toronto from COVID-19 infection against COVID-19. The COVID-19 dashboard of COVID-19, COVID-19 infection, if COVID-19 with COVID-19.
Canadians need to get vaccinated.
It's knowing that each of us doing our part is getting through this, because we don't get through this unless the vast majority of the population gets that first shot and then a few months later gets that second shot.
All of this brainwashing and mind control was being done at the Allen Institute in Montreal, which even today is still a part of the McGill University Health Center. Coincidentally, Dr. Timothy Grant Evans joined the faculty of McGill in September 2019 as the newly created and first ever Director and Associate Dean of the School of Population and Global Health in the Faculty of Medicine at McGill. Another coincidence along with the McGill connection is that Evans is also a member of the World Economic Forum and was also one of the key figures and speakers at Event 201. For those unfamiliar, Event 201 was funded by the World Economic Forum in association with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and the Johns Hopkins Center for Health Security, which was a simulated high-level pandemic exercise on October 18, 2019 in New York City. The exercise illustrated areas where public and private partnerships will be necessary during the response to a severe coronavirus pandemic in order to diminish large-scale economic and societal consequences. Also coincidentally, an actual worldwide pandemic unfolded just a few weeks after Event 201, almost exactly as they scripted it in October. Also coincidentally, prior to having a position created for him at McGill University in 2019, Evans was the Assistant Director General at the World Health Organization from 2003 to 2010. And prior to that, Evans served as Director of the Health Equity Theme at the Rockefeller Foundation. The same Rockefeller Foundation that originally funded the brainwashing and mind control experiments being done at McGill University in association with the CIA. If all of this sounds like too much of a conspiracy theory for you, let's go back to your trusted source of information, the CBC, to slow things down for you and help you understand that yes, the Canadian government does and has worked with the CIA to perform mind control experiments on the people of Canada.
Americans became obsessed with brainwashing during the Korean War. Prisoners of war returned home denouncing the American way of life. Hearing them parroting propaganda, the CIA became convinced the communists had found the key to brainwashing. Now the Americans had to unlock the mystery of mind control.
There was great worry that the Soviets had developed rather esoteric and unusual methods of so-called brainwashing people. The purge trials.
Dr. John Gittinger was the CIA's chief psychologist for 25 years.
There was continued pressure put upon anybody within the agency in connection with trying to explain or understand brainwashing. So we were charged with rather an elaborate attempt to try to find out chemical, psychological, any kind of means that people could use to influence the behavior of the people.
For those of you trying to wake up friends and family who you believe have likely been brainwashed over the past 2 years, you may want to think again.
Malls are always busy places during the holidays, but the people in line at Victoria Square in Regina aren't shopping. They're waiting hours for a COVID-19 booster.
I was actually surprised at how long it is. It's good to see, of course, all the people, but it's wrapped around the whole mall in there.
I came here at 9 o'clock this morning because I looked online that this was one of the LCBOs that had free tests, but there was a big long lineup, so I thought I'd come back later. I came back 2 hours later and they were sold out.
It's very concerning for me. I work in healthcare, so it's very concerning, and I have 2 kids at home, so protect the family.
According to Dr. Cameron's brainwashing experiments, you can provide a brainwashed person hundreds of examples that they're incorrect and have in fact been brainwashed, but they still won't relent and believe what you're saying. They're too far gone now. If you think for 1 second that the Canadian government and the CIA all of a sudden just stopped working on brainwashing and mind control experiments in the 1970s, you're kidding yourself. As we head into the year 2022, just know that by now, they're no longer experimenting and have in fact learned to perfect their tactics.